Hey guys, welcome, it's Koopagen again here with the fourth volume of The Wolf Queen. We're going to go ahead and read through it on the last one. She tried to get her brother to abdicate the throne by using a shifty method, the same one that she used in order to get her son-in-law essentially to give up his position within the kingdom. She planted some evidence, tricked the king into thinking that his son was not his own, but that actually backfired in this situation and led to her brother being able to catch her forging notes from her own hand. That is going to make it seem as though she did that to her king and get her in a lot more trouble. So she's essentially being forced to back off while he takes head as emperor of the entire kingdom. So it did not go her way. We're going to find out what moves forward from there in this book, but it's just a tiny recap. That's what we're dealing with. If you like this series, go ahead and slap a like down there, but without further ado, we're just going to read through this, and I appreciate you guys. The Wolf Queen, Book 4 by Waffen Yart. From the pen of the 1st century 3rd era sage Montekai, 3rd era, year 109. 10 years after being crowned emperor of Tamriel, Antiochus Septim had impressed his subjects with little but the enormity of his lust for carnal pleasure. By his second wife, Gisilla, he had a daughter in the year 104, who he named Kintira, after his great-great-great-grandaunt, the Empress. Enormously fat and marked by every venereal disease known to the healers, Antiochus spent little time on politics. His siblings, by marked contrast, excelled in this field. Magnus had married Helena, the Cyrodiil queen of Lilmoth, the Argonian priest-king having been executed, and was representing the imperial interest in Blackmarsh admirably. Zephyrus and his wife Bianchi were ruling the Hammerfell kingdom of Ghislaine with a healthy brood of children. But no one was more politically active than Potema, the Wolf Queen of the Skyrim Kingdom of Solitude. 9 years after the death of her husband, King Mantiarco, Potema still ruled as regent for her young son, Uriel. Their court had become very fashionable, particularly for rulers who had a grudge to bear against the emperor. All the kings of Skyrim visited Castle Solitude regularly, and over the years, emissaries from the lands of Morrowind and High Rock did as well. Some guests came from even farther away. So up to this point, it seems as though the wife Bianchi and her husband been doing a great job, Magnus and them doing a great job, Antiochus not doing so well, but Potema also seems to have overcome the kind of hatred around her not being a regular of Skyrim. So she's gotten past that, even though it hasn't really said it explicitly. So far it seems like, everyone visiting and kind of letting her rule, to me, means she's done a good enough job as a ruler that these people are now kind of on her side. It seemed like they originally weren't, now it's kind of a flip-flop. So 3rd era, year 110. Potema stood at the harbor and watched the boat from Piandonia arrive. Against the gray breaking waves where she had seen so many vessels of Tamrielic manufacture, it looked less than exotic, insectoid certainly, with its membranous sails and rugged chitin hull. But she had seen similar, if not identical, sea craft. No, if not for the flag, which was markedly alien, she would not have picked out the ship from others in the harbor. As the salty mist ballooned around her, she held out her hand in welcome to the visitors from another island empire. The men aboard were not merely pale, they were entirely colorless, as if their flesh were made of some white, limpid jelly. But she had been forewarned. At the arrival of the king and his translator, she looked directly into their blank eyes and offered her hand. The king made noise. His great majesty, King Orgnum, said the translator haltingly, expresses his delight at your beauty. He thanks you for giving him refuge from these dangerous seas. Speak Cyrodiilic very well, said Potema. I am fluent in the languages of 4 continents, said the translator. I can speak to the denizens of my own country, Piandonia, as well as those of Atmora, Akavir, and here in Tamriel. Yours is the easiest, actually. I was looking forward to this voyage. Please tell His Highness that he is welcome here, and that I am entirely at his disposal, said Potema, smiling. Then she added, you understand the context? That I am just being polite? Of course, said the translator, and then made several noises at the king, which the king reacted to with a smile. While they conversed, Potema looked up the dock and saw the now familiar grey cloaks watching her while they spoke with Levlet, Antiochus's man. The Sigic order from the Somerset Isle, very bothersome. My diplomatic emissary, Lord Vulcan, will show you to your rooms, said Potema. Unfortunately, I have some other guests as well who require my attention. I hope your great majesty understands. His great majesty King Orgnum did understand, and Potema made arrangements to dine with the Piandonians that evening. Meeting with the Sigic order required all of her concentration. She dressed in her simplest black and gold robe and went to her state repair. Her son Uriel was on the throne, playing with his pet Yogut, or Jogut. I don't know how to say it, homie. Good morning, darling, said Potema, lifting her son in the air with feigned disdain. Talos, but you're heavy. I don't think I've ever carried such a heavy 10-year-old. That's probably because I'm 11, said Uriel, perfectly aware of his mother's tricks. And you're going to say that as an 11-year-old I should probably be with my tutor. I was fanatical about studying at your age, said Potema. I am king, said Uriel petulantly. But don't be satisfied with that, said Potema. By all rights, you should be emperor already. You understand that, don't you? Uriel nodded his head. Potema took a moment to marvel at his likeness to the portraits of Tiber Septim. The same ruthless brow and powerful chin. When he was older and lost his baby fat, he'd be a spitting image of his great-great-great-great-great-granduncle. Behind her, she heard the door opening and an usher bringing in several grey cloaks. She stiffened lightly, and Uriel, on cue, jumped down from the throne and left the state, pausing to greet the most important. Said, "Good morning, Master Ike said, enunciating each syllable with a regal accent that made Potema's heart soar. I hope your accommodations at Castle Solitude meet with your approval." "They do, King Uriel, thank you," said Ichesus, delighted and charmed. Ichesus and his Syzyx entered the chamber, and the door was shut behind them. Potema sat only for a moment on the throne before stepping off the dais and greeting her guests. "I am so sorry to have kept you waiting," said Potema. "To think that you sailed all the way from the Somerset Isles and I should keep you waiting any longer. You must forgive me." "It's not all that long a voyage," said one of the grey cloaks angrily. "It isn't as if we sailed all the way from Piandonia." "Ah, you've seen my most recent guest, King Orgnum and his retinue," said Potema breezily. "I suppose you think it unusual me entertaining them, as we all know the Piandonians mean to invade Tamriel. You are, I take it, as neutral in this as you are in all political matters." "Of course," said Ichesus proudly. "We have nothing to gain or lose by the invasion. The Syzyx order preceded the organization of Tamriel under the Septim dynasty, and we shall survive under any political regime. Rather like a flea on whatever mongrel happens along, are you?" said Potema, narrowing her eyes. "Don't overestimate your importance, Ichesus. Your order's child, the Mages Guild, has twice the power you have, and they are entirely on my side. We are in the process of making an agreement with King Orgnum. When the Piandonians take over and I am in my proper place as Empress of this continent, then you shall know your proper place in the order of things." With a majestic stride, Potema left the stateroom, leaving the grey cloaks to look from one to the other. "We must speak to Lord Levlet," said one of the grey cloaks. "Yes," said Ichesus, "perhaps we should." Levlet was quickly found at his usual place at the Moon and Nausea Tavern. As the three grey cloaks entered, led by Ichesus, the smoke and the noise seemed to die in their paths. Even the smell of tobacco and flint dissipated in their wake. He rose and then escorted them to a small room upstairs. "You've reconsidered," said Levlet with a broad smile. "Your emperor," said Ichesus, and then corrected himself. "Our emperor originally asked for our support in defending the west coast of Tamriel from the Piandonian fleet in return for 12 million gold pieces. We offered our services at 50. Upon reflection on the dangers that a Pandonian invasion would have, we accept his earlier offer. The Mages Guild has generously, perhaps for as low as 10 million gold pieces," said Ichesus quickly. Over the course of dinner, Potema promised King Orgnum, through the interpreter, to lead an insurrection against her brother. She was delighted to discover that her capacity for lying worked in many different cultures. Potema shared her bed that night with King Orgnum, as it seemed the polite and diplomatic thing to do. As it turned out, he was one of the better lovers she had ever had. He gave her some herbs before beginning that made her feel as if she was floating on the surface of time, conscious only of the gestures of love after she had found herself making. She felt herself like the cooling mist, quenching the fire of his lust over and over and over again. In the morning, when he kissed her on the cheek and said with his bold white eyes that he was leaving her, she felt a stab of regret. The ship left harbor that morning, en route to the Somerset Isles and the imminent invasion. She waved them off to sea as she footsteps behind her. It was Levlet, I guess she heard. "They would do it for 8 million, your highness," he said. "Thank Mara," said Potema. "I need more time for an insurrection. Pay them from my treasury, and then go to the Imperial City and get the 12 million from Antiochus. We should make a good profit from this game, and you, of course, will have your share." Okay, so to me, if I'm understanding this correctly, she basically led that king and his men to their doom, because it seems like she's the one paying those guys, but used the guy who's lying, and Antiochus was willing to pay them 12 million. He talked them into accepting 8, and then leading to the king to get 12, which is an odd thing for the Syzyx monk or mages to accept, because my understanding of them is that they can tell all these things going on and can even freeze time and get an understanding of things. So I don't know why they would fall for such a trick, being who they are. Or maybe at this point they weren't technically that powerful. So we'll just have to figure it out. Maybe that's that's something they gathered later on by the current Skyrim timeline. 3 months later, Potema heard that the fleet of the Piandonians had been utterly destroyed by a storm that had appeared suddenly off the Isle of Artaeum, the home port of the Sigic Order. King Orgnum and all of his ships had been utterly annihilated. Sometimes making people hate you, she said, holding her son Uriel close, is how you make a profit. So guys, it did lead to their destruction. The Sigics utterly obliterated these guys and they stood no chance. So who even knows if there was a casualty on the other side? I paused prematurely there. The book's already done. But with that, guys, that's this volume in the bag. If you want to keep seeing more, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and run through all 8 volumes, but I appreciate anyone who's made it through the 4th volume. You know, it's super awesome to have you guys around. Let me know in the comments if you want to see other things. And until the next volume, I hope you guys have a good one. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye and appreciate it.